Adrian Vale was the city's most celebrated chef, a culinary star whose flawless dishes drew crowds every night until a series of mysterious illnesses revealed that his kitchen might be serving something far more sinister than food. The city's downtown district glowed with neon lights and the hum of evening traffic, but one small corner always seemed to outshine the rest. Tucked between a florist and an antique bookstore stood a bistro named Ember and Thyme, a cozy restaurant with golden lanterns and a reputation for extraordinary food. Every night, people lined up outside, eager for a taste of the dishes that had become local legend. At the heart of this success was Adrian Vale, a chef whose name was whispered with admiration across culinary circles. His talent for combining flavors bordered on magical. Critics described his meals as experiences rather than dinners, each plate a perfect balance of color, texture, and aroma. Food bloggers posted pictures that flooded social media, making the bistro a must-visit destination for tourists and residents alike. Regular customers swore that Adrian possessed an almost otherworldly intuition for what each person wanted, as though he could read appetites before a word was spoken. Yet beneath the warm lights and polished wood tables, small details hinted at something less welcoming. The kitchen, while immaculate, carried a tension that only the staff seemed to notice. Adrian worked long after closing, often staying until the first hint of dawn. Assistants would leave at midnight and return the next morning to find new ingredients neatly arranged, some labeled with symbols no one recognized. He never explained the cryptic notes that filled his private recipe books, nor did he allow anyone to touch them. Even deliveries for the restaurant were unusual. Suppliers dropped off boxes marked with codes instead of names, and Adrian signed for them personally, refusing to let others check the contents. To the staff, it became routine to shrug off these oddities as the habits of a genius. As weeks passed, whispers of unease began to spread beyond the kitchen. A pair of frequent diners fell sick after a 7-course tasting, their symptoms puzzling doctors. Another guest reported a strange metallic taste in a signature dish, but recovered before anyone took notice. Each incident seemed isolated, a coincidence in a busy food scene, but for those who worked closest to Adrian, a subtle chill accompanied each new event. There was something in his steady gaze, something unreadable when he handled knives with perfect precision. He greeted customers with a courteous smile, but his silence lingered like a shadow. To the city, Ember and Thyme remained a beacon of flavor and sophistication. To those who watched Adrian move through the quiet kitchen at night, it began to feel like a stage set for something far more unsettling, a place where perfection hid secrets no one was brave enough to name. The unsettling incidents multiplied slowly, slipping beneath the radar of health inspectors and regular patrons who were eager to keep believing in the charm of Ember and Thyme. After the first mysterious illnesses, a businessman known for his strict dining routine suffered a sudden bout of blurred vision and dizziness only hours after enjoying Adrian's prized truffle risotto. Doctors chalked it up to exhaustion, and the man himself insisted it was nothing more than stress. Days later, a popular food blogger collapsed during the taxi ride home from a much-publicized tasting menu, her review never making it to print. Though each case seemed different on the surface, the timing and connection to the restaurant were hard to ignore. Quiet conversations began in neighborhood cafes and on late-night radio shows, where callers debated whether a hidden health hazard might lurk behind the bistro's glowing reputation. City health officials carried out a thorough inspection in response to the growing rumors. They found a kitchen that was spotless, equipment gleaming like new, and a pantry stocked with ingredients of impeccable quality. Refrigerators were maintained at perfect temperatures, and records of food handling were exact. Adrian stood calmly through every question, offering charming smiles and even preparing a complimentary dessert for the inspection team. When the visit concluded with no violations, many breathed a sigh of relief. Yet those who worked alongside the chef felt no comfort. His quiet composure seemed too controlled, like someone who had anticipated every step of the investigation. Among the staff, subtle warning signs became difficult to dismiss. One assistant noticed jars of spices that smelled slightly different from the usual blends, a faint bitterness that clung to the air when opened. Another recalled sealed containers mysteriously replaced overnight, always marked with the same unrecognizable symbols Adrian used in his private notes. Late deliveries arrived at odd hours, and Adrian alone signed for them, carrying the boxes into a locked storage room before anyone else could look inside. He never raised his voice, never offered explanations, only an unshakable assurance that everything was under control. When a loyal patron died after a private dining experience, an older woman celebrated for her refined palate, the unease turned into fear. Medical examiners struggled to identify the cause, citing a sudden and rare reaction that left no clear trace. Regular customers started to cancel reservations, though few admitted their worries out loud. In the quiet aftermath, the bistro's inviting glow began to feel deceptive, like a stage light hiding a darker performance. Those who had once praised Adrian's genius now exchanged wary glances, sensing that the restaurant's elegance concealed something carefully, deliberately dangerous. The investigation deepened when detectives decided to retrace every incident connected to the restaurant, searching for a pattern that could explain the illnesses and sudden death. They began by collecting medical records, food samples, and even scraps of receipts from the nights in question. At first, the evidence seemed maddeningly ordinary. Ingredients tested clean, water supplies showed no contamination, and suppliers confirmed that every shipment met safety standards. It was only when an officer reviewed hours of surveillance footage that a disturbing detail emerged. In the stillness of midnight, long after the last customer had left, Adrian could be seen moving through the darkened kitchen with deliberate care. He opened a small cabinet that no one else was allowed to touch, withdrew a slender glass bottle, and added a few measured drops into containers of sauce prepared for the next day. His face remained calm, focused, almost serene, as if performing a delicate art. Further analysis revealed the substance was a rare toxin derived from a plant not commonly found in commercial markets. It was potent enough to cause severe symptoms in tiny amounts, yet broke down quickly under heat, leaving only faint chemical traces nearly impossible to identify after cooking. The discovery explained the scattered illnesses and the medical community's confusion, but it raised an even more chilling question. Why were the victims chosen? Detectives combed through dining records and found that each person who had fallen ill had once left a critical remark about the restaurant, whether in a published review, an online rating, or even a casual social media post. The connection was unmistakable. Adrian's acts were not random. They were calculated reprisals disguised as fine cuisine. Investigators also uncovered fragments of old disputes hidden beneath the bistro's polished image. Years earlier, Adrian had clashed publicly with a well-known critic who mocked his ambitious tasting menu. In private, staff members recalled moments when Adrian's polite exterior cracked for just an instant, revealing a cold bitterness when negative comments were mentioned. He kept meticulous notes in coded journals, listing names, dates, and what appeared to be measurements beside each. Every entry looked like part of a recipe, but detectives realized the details marked his chosen targets and the doses he used. The realization struck the investigative team with quiet horror. The celebrated chef had turned his kitchen into a place of revenge, using culinary brilliance as camouflage for a meticulous campaign. Each elegant plate that left his counter was a potential weapon, and each satisfied smile from a diner might have been his silent victory. The city, once enchanted by his artistry, had unknowingly become the setting for a carefully plotted series of attacks. Detectives knew they had enough evidence to make an arrest, but the challenge was doing it without alarming the public or giving Adrian a chance to destroy what remained of their case. They decided to move during an evening service, when the restaurant would be busy enough to mask their presence but not so crowded that chaos would be unmanageable. Undercover officers booked a table as ordinary diners, while a larger team waited in unmarked vehicles outside. The plan was simple: confirm Adrian's actions in real time, then quietly escort him away before anyone realized what was happening. As the dinner rush began, the bistro filled with the familiar sounds of clinking glasses and soft music. Adrian worked with his usual calm precision, plating dishes that looked like works of art. Yet something in his movements suggested he sensed a shift in the air. His eyes lingered on unfamiliar faces, his posture tense beneath the white chef's coat. When a delivery arrived unexpectedly through the back door, a scheduled drop that detectives hadn't anticipated, he seized the moment. Without a word to his staff, Adrian slipped into the narrow hallway leading to the locked storage room that only he ever entered. Minutes later, smoke alarms erupted in a piercing shriek. A thin trail of gray poured from the back corner of the kitchen, quickly thickening into a choking haze. Sprinklers activated, showering the dining area as startled customers scrambled for the exits. In the confusion, officers inside the restaurant exchanged urgent signals while the team outside surged forward. The fire, though small, spread just enough to threaten the evidence stored in the kitchen and pantry. It was clear that someone had triggered it deliberately. Adrian emerged from the smoke carrying a weathered leather satchel instead of his usual cooking tools. He moved swiftly toward the alley exit, slipping past frantic staff and diners. Officers intercepted him before he reached the street, surrounding him under the flashing red lights of approaching fire engines. He did not struggle or speak as they opened the satchel, revealing a careful collection of small bottles filled with dark liquids, each labeled with a single name written in Adrian's neat hand. Firefighters contained the blaze before it consumed the building, later confirming the ignition source was deliberate and timed. Investigators believe the fire was meant to destroy his coded journals and any remaining traces of the toxin. Though the restaurant's elegant interior was soaked and blackened, the swift arrest ensured the hidden evidence remained intact. The night that began with the promise of another flawless dinner ended as a chaotic scene of alarms, smoke, and the quiet capture of a man whose culinary genius masked a far more dangerous ambition. The trial that followed became one of the most talked about cases the city had ever seen. Crowds gathered outside the courthouse each morning, a mix of reporters, curious onlookers, and grieving families hoping to witness justice unfold. Inside, prosecutors presented a meticulous timeline built from surveillance footage, chemical analyses, and the journals seized from Adrian's apartment. Each page of those notebooks read like a hybrid of recipe and confession, listing names of diners beside cryptic measurements and notations about flavor and timing. Experts explained how the rare toxin degraded under heat, yet retained enough potency to sicken or kill when used with precision. Jurors listened in stunned silence as medical professionals confirmed the link between the mysterious illnesses and Adrian's careful dosing. Former employees took the stand, their testimonies revealing a pattern of secretive behavior that now seemed unmistakably sinister. They spoke of late-night experiments, locked storage rooms, and deliveries accepted only by Adrian himself. Some recalled fleeting moments when his composed demeanor slipped, revealing flashes of cold satisfaction whenever a critical review surfaced online. The prosecution argued that these incidents were not random acts of anger but a sustained campaign of retaliation, each meal a calculated strike against anyone who questioned his skill. Adrian's defense team attempted to paint him as a misunderstood artist, claiming the toxins were part of obscure culinary techniques gone wrong. Yet the evidence was overwhelming. Forensic scientists demonstrated how the substances found in his leather satchel matched the chemical traces left in victims' bodies. Digital forensics uncovered private messages where he expressed disdain for certain critics, further eroding the idea of innocent experimentation. When the verdict was finally read, the courtroom held its breath. Guilty on all counts, multiple charges of murder, attempted murder, and arson. Adrian stood without visible reaction, his expression as controlled as it had been in the kitchen. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a decision met with quiet relief from the families who had endured months of painful testimony. Ember and Thyme never reopened. Its once glowing sign was taken down, the windows boarded and dark. The space that had drawn food lovers from across the city became a silent reminder of how easily beauty can conceal danger. In the months that followed, restaurants everywhere tightened safety measures, and diners looked twice at every plate set before them. The story of a celebrated chef who turned his craft into a weapon lingered like a bitter aftertaste, a cautionary tale whispered in kitchens long after the final course had been served.